Well, hey, howdy, hi. Welcome back to my channel. Thank you so much for stopping by to join me today. I really do appreciate it. My name is Ellie, and I'm a witch. And this over here is my teaching assistant, Andy, and today is Monday, and on my turn that means it is Misheard History. And today's Misheard History topic is going to be about Doveland, Wisconsin, the town that never existed. Oh yeah, I didn't tell you guys what this video is going to be about last week, so surprise. But let's just go ahead and jump into talking about this video. So I've covered some pretty strange cases, I would say, but I think this one has to take the cake so far. Our story takes us to Wisconsin in the 1990s. Now, most towns keep records of countless things: property records, public officials, birth and death records of residents. On a state level, all states keep official state archives, which contain records like census data and the history of every town in the state. With all these records being kept, finding a small town called Doveland shouldn't be hard. Getting the records from an archive is not difficult in and of itself. There are several ways to do so, but the most well-known are to either just ask for the records, as a lot of them are public record and do not need a specific release. For information that does need a release, you just submit a Freedom of Information Act request, or FOIA. In this case, though, there are no records that Doveland ever existed. There are no records that show it was renamed, rezoned, nor are there any maps that include Doveland. Despite there being no records, people claim to remember the town. Some had family or friends who actually lived there, or they visited it, and some people even have souvenirs to prove they had visited. According to these people, the town just disappeared off the face of the earth one day. Now, a town just doesn't disappear, so people are left to theorize as to what happened as best they could, so let's talk about some of these theories. One of the leading theories is that Doveland was hit by an earthquake, and this earthquake caused a sinkhole that swallowed the whole town. However, someone likely would have noticed that, or there would be records of an earthquake of that size. Another theory is that there was a flood. In the state of Wisconsin, there have been over 900 dams built, and there have been multiple instances of dams bursting and almost leveling towns. So could Dublin have been one of those towns that didn't survive? Others, though, believe that the town was the unfortunate victim of a military experiment that went wrong. What the experiment was, I could not tell you. Another theory that is very similar, though, was that the town itself was a military town that was only meant to last until the end of the operation or war. Now, towns like this do exist, but there are no records of Dublin being one of those towns, nor do we have any first-hand accounts to corroborate this theory. A theory that probably makes the most sense is that the inhabitants moved away when the economy collapsed. This did happen in the US, and these places are called ghost towns. The difference is that they're still physically towns with no names, but there is no ghost town called Doveland. The next theory is the one that would probably most neatly tie up this mystery. Those who believe this theory think that the town does actually still exist, but it's invisible. I am unsure how that works, or if those who believe this theory could even tell you. The last theory is obviously aliens. This theory says that aliens abducted the whole town, buildings and all, which left no signs the town was ever there. Now, some people might think that this all sounds a little goofy and nonsensical, so let's talk about if these theories could be plausible. The earthquake theory is just not possible. To have leveled a town would have been one thing, but there are no fault lines through Wisconsin, meaning an earthquake would not have had the power to make a whole town disappear. Now, this isn't to say Wisconsin has never had an earthquake, they're just weak on the Richter scale. The majority also don't start in Wisconsin, but rather surrounding states are the epicenter, and Wisconsin just kind of gets the aftershocks. There is also no record of any town in Wisconsin experiencing any more than minor damage due to an earthquake. So there just isn't any evidence that would back up a theory that a sinkhole swallowed Doveland. And that is also ignoring the small detail of what happened to the hole. There would at least be evidence of that. The flood theory also falls under that same line of thought. A town just doesn't disappear. There are records of towns being completely destroyed when dams burst. The difference is that there are still records of the town, and there was evidence that the town had been there. Trash, parts of structures, building foundations, those are things that would still be found at flood sites, but nothing like that has been found in relation to Doveland. The military experiment gone awry theory is an interesting one, but the lack of evidence should make one weary. If you look at Chernobyl as an example, the city was destroyed and is still radioactive all these decades later, but the city itself still exists. So even if something had happened to Doveland due to the military, this town itself would still exist to some degree. The other military theory actually has roots in reality. North Concord's United States Air Force Station in Vermont, Fort Pike in Louisiana, Fort Tilden in New York, and Titan I Missile Complex in Washington. These are all abandoned. All that remains are empty buildings covered in graffiti. So had Doveland been a military town, abandoned after it was no longer needed, the town would still be standing. Same logic applies to collapsing economy. Boom towns existed solely so workers had a place to live while they mined gold, coal, silver, so maybe Doveland was one of those. But boom towns become ghost towns when mines dried up, so they still exist physically. I don't think I need to talk about the invisibility theory. It is very fantastical, but it would be interesting to poll how many people actually believe this theory. But in the end, it is neither possible nor is it plausible. So what really is the deal with Doveland? There were no mentions of Dublin or any town in Wisconsin that suddenly disappeared until 2015. Obviously, we know that the internet is both a blessing and a curse. Photos are doctored, legends are born, creepy stories with doctored records come about. Souvenirs were what some people were using to prove that this mysterious town existed, and these souvenirs are real, they're just not from Doveland. You can find mugs, hats, keychains, shirts that are all from Doveland for sale on sites like Redbubble or Etsy. What about people who claim to have visited or knew people from Doveland before it vanished? Well, there's a couple of different reasons for that. One is that they're just lying and fueling a hoax. The other reason, though, could be that they're experiencing false memories, specifically a Mandela effect. For those who don't know, a Mandela effect is a false memory that exists in a large group of people. Some examples are the Berenstain versus Berenstein Bears, or Mr. Monopoly having or not having a monocle. I'll get into the Mandela effect in another video, but this could be what is happening here. These false memories can be reinforced thanks to social media or doctored information. What we can say with some strong conviction is that Doveland does not exist and never existed. The theories are fun and sometimes outlandish, but at the end of the day, we'll never prove one way or another what really happened, if anything. And that is all that I have for you today. This one was really interesting. I had never heard about it, but going down that rabbit hole was super fun. Another, not like a theory, but something that kind of makes a little bit, I will say a little bit of sense, is that originally when people were going around and documenting, cartographers were documenting cities and all of that kind of stuff as they traveled along, some of them would create false cities or areas so they knew who was copying their maps, because they knew that these places did not exist, really, so if you see it on another person's map, you know they're just lying. So some people think that might have been where this came from, but we weren't having cartographers out there in the 90s like we were in the Middle Ages. But I think that one is probably the most rooted in reality, other than the military towns being abandoned. I know that some people are going to argue that, the military could have just destroyed the whole town and cleaned it up like nothing happened. But we have records of other military towns that were abandoned, so I don't see why they would do that, but it is the government. But you guys will have to let me know what you believe, or if you've heard any other theories, or if you know anything else, if you know somebody who has actually visited Doveland. I was this close to buying something on Etsy or Redbubble to kind of be look, I have a souvenir too, but I wanted to get this video out, and I only thought about it 2 days ago. And there's no way I was gonna get something in 2 days, so that's a shame. But next time I might just put off the video so I can do something goofy like that. So yeah, tomorrow I will be talking about The Watcher. I will include both the actual case and then I will talk about the Netflix series they have on it, which is also really interesting. I would recommend you watch that if you're interested in the Watcher case. So for next week, I will be skipping my Legends and Lore episode, and on Monday I will be talking about El Dorado. And on Tuesday, I will be talking about Abraham Lincoln, but specifically I want to talk about that because I have a book of conspiracy theories, and it's really interesting. I'm not a conspiracy theorist for the most part, but there is one in there about the conspiracy theory that John Wilkes Booth did not die when they thought he died in that barn. and there's all this evidence, and so I want to show that to you guys and talk to you guys about that along with the actual Abraham Lincoln, what led up to his death, and then what happened afterwards. Also, before I forget, on Thursday, March 6th, I will be streaming a game called Do No Harm. I will be streaming it both on Twitch as well as here on YouTube, which means I also will be uploading VODs soon. And then on Saturday the 8th, I will also be streaming. I might just be doing demos only that day. I don't know yet, so if you're interested in any updates, I will post those on Instagram. But I do not want to take up any more of you guys' time. I hope you have a lovely rest of your day, and I will see you tomorrow. Bye!